Maybe we can set that up. I can grab my phone, we can try.
The only problem with that is the audible.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for people to hear, I think.
Oh, Tom got it.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Back in
Thank you so much for what you
business.
did.
Sometimes just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Taking the same URL, putting it back to
Nice
back.
to know we can all come up with
Fantastic.
creative
I don't even
solutions.
know why it
Yeah, we
needed to
just
do
did
that.
it, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I haven't had that. Okay, thanks.
So are we live streaming?
Yep, we're ready
We
to
are.
go.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Cheney?
Here.
Trustee Foster?
Here.
Mayor Newhart?
Here.
Trustee Calora?
Here.
Trustee McKnight?
Here.
Benjamin Gailey?
Here.
Isabel Hayes? Here.
As an introduction, I would like to welcome Ben and Isabella. This is our new council in their first meeting tonight, and thank you. Welcome aboard. They are from the firm Jacobowitz and Gubitz.
J&G Law.
J&G Law, excuse me. I'm an older. J&G Law.
Took me a while too.
Yeah, but welcome aboard. We're pleased that you will be with us and helping us go through the details of our village administration and work. So,
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We really appreciate the opportunity to give legal assistance to the board of the Queen Village.
well, thank you. Thank you. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of June 2nd, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to accept reports of May 2025, the Clerk's Office, Justice Department, Planning Department, Building Department, and Department of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion for authorization to pay all approved and audited claims in the amount of $397,784.96.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the chief is not with us tonight, so there will be no report. But I would like to make a comment about the police. We had a very busy weekend in our village this past Saturday especially. And we had a No King demonstration on Main Street, and then we had a very large firemen's parade. And I can just, say that our police force was stellar in every way. And for the morning activity, for the demonstration, they did have to bring in the state police because of limited officers, because there was an exam that many were taking. But I've only heard great response back from anybody that was participating, which is great. It was very nerve-wracking, very stressful for the chief, I know, but he did an excellent job, grace under pressure, and we got through it. So that was good, very good. Under correspondence, we have a letter from David Orr, Director of New York State LTAP Center, Cornell Local Roads Program, recognizing the Village of Warwick's Department of Public Works for outstanding achievement in innovation through the 2025 Building a Better Mousetrap competition in the development of the Fin Bin. And that sounds rather abstract, but what it is, it was created by one of our assistant DPW supervisor, Mike Finelli, and thus the name Finn is attached to it, and that's his nickname. And the idea, the concept, is to create a what would you call it?
A cover.
A cover for any of the large bins that are used by municipalities, usually for garbage or recycling, especially during big events. And what he did was he created this cover that just actually fits snugly over it. It's almost like a gaiter, but it's for these large many gallon bins. So it's beautiful, and he created a mock-up, and he brought it up to, I don't know, where was the
Ithaca?
Ithaca,
And
And-
they're customizable,
and customizable, yeah. Oh, here.
washable,
I'll just-
reusable.
Just for the public to see. So here's the naked bin, and then here it is with the cover that he created, and again, customizable, and it can go on in a second, so it's very adaptable. So he's a very creative young man.
Good job, Mike.
Yeah, good job, Mike, exactly. And that's all under correspondence. And then tonight, finally, we have a full board. We haven't had a full board for almost a month because of everyone's schedule. And it came to it was brought to us, I think by trustee Foster, the idea of revisiting the Village Code, Chapter 36, Article 2, keeping of fowl, rabbits, and pigeons. And at that moment, we expressed that we would look into it. And I have, to some degree, I reached out to Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they're more than willing to give us guidance, and that is great. Mary Ulrich is the person who is in charge of that division of Cornell. And she also said that she would come down and speak to the board, and that's a good thing. So, other than that, though, we've received multiple, just because it's in the air, and either people saw that meeting or they've heard things online, we've been getting many emails, some for and some opposed. And so we're sorting that out, and, there are different levels of, desire to have chickens, and different levels of people who are opposed to it. But I think it's really for us as a board. I mean, there are, so Carly came up with a mock local law as sort of a level of guidance. And if we go that direction, I'm sure it will have to be tweaked. But I think it's up to the board to really come to a determination whether we want to proceed, and whether this is, we want to spend time, energy, and also the costs of creating this local law. So I'm opening it up to the board to get your responses on that.
And maybe if I could just, so part of the origin of this is in reviewing the law. This in particular seemed like an area of legislative overreach, especially considering that there are a number of, it was passed in the 70s, right? And I do understand that the village explored sort of changing this regulation in the past as well. There's a growing kind of movement across the U.S. to allow chickens in more urban areas. I did, in drafting the ordinance, just as a baseline for discussion, right? I did that based on a review of ordinances across the country, including others in the state of New York and the town of Warwick. And, considered some of the key issues. You'll notice also that in the draft, I removed reference to rabbits because I found that to be a very interesting kind of identification, stating that people could not own rabbits even as pets, but it was silent on guinea pigs, for example, which might also be used for meat. So I just removed language of that because other animals other than cats and dogs are not referenced in the ordinance. So. And then in addition to some of the key emails that we've received, both anti and pro chickens in the village, we have received a petition, which I forwarded to Raina, that was developed by folks that are in the audience tonight, and that included 113 signatures, although about 25 of them were from folks outside of the village, so maybe 70 to 80. Actually, that math doesn't work, but we
Well,
can do the math.
we get the idea.
Yeah, in favor of the chickens. So I would urge the board to consider this at this time. I think also, we have in recent years experienced potential supply chain issues on multiple occasions for a variety of sources, right? Of resources. For example, when we were dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw shortages of things like toilet paper, right? So we saw some fragility in our supply chain. Also recently with the avian flu. And I think that resilience of our community is really essential for us to consider as we, just consider the various forces that we face as a community. We recently experienced wildfires. There may be other supply chain issues. And so resilience can come in many different forms. And one of them is empowering people to have more control over their food supply. And I think that having chickens and eggs, which are often staples in people's households, is a key opportunity for that. I also recognize that there were considerations and issues that led to the, revocation of the allowance of chickens in the village. Among them, noise, possibly the attraction of predators into the community. I think that all of those issues can be remediated through proper governance procedures, and just as a general rule of thumb, I feel that as a board, we should be regulating to just the minimum necessary to ensure health, safety, and well-being within our community. So to disallow chickens altogether when the issues associated can be remediated as demonstrated by other urban communities throughout the country and the state of New York, including New York City, which is highly urbanized. I do recognize that it doesn't have as much wildland-urban interface as the village of Warwick. I think that we can look at other communities. I think that good governance would require that we move forward. That's my perspective on the matter. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, yeah. Tom?
Carly, hearing all the points you make, I'm coming at this from a completely different angle. I'm thinking about this in terms of the density. I'm trying to put myself not thinking about whether chickens are or not a good idea. It's more about, is it appropriate for our village? So I looked at the tax assessor's records today. We have 2,519 residential parcels in the village. 49.5% of those are less than a quarter acre. If you add between a quarter and less than a half, so more than a quarter of an acre, less than half an acre, that's another 34%. So if you add it up, 83% of the parcels are less than half an acre in the village. To me, that says it's quite dense. Now, if you think about all of the controls you're describing, Carly, such as gotta have a fence, right? Gotta have a chicken coop of
A chicken run.
a proper size and a run and all that,
And setbacks.
and the yard setbacks, right? So you look at our zoning code, page 95 is the bulk table, and it's saying you've got to have, let me bring it up here. You've got to have total side setbacks of 50 feet for left and right.
Adding that all together.
And then, obviously,
But
I don't think
wait-
front
Yeah, that's-
setback makes sense
That's-
in this
no.
context, but
Is that correct?
Again,
No.
no, it's total, 50-something total and a minimum, and there are minimums on the side.
minimum of 20.
Are we,
Minimum.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
are we
50.
talking about the current code, or are we talking about the proposed ordinance?
Current code, and the
Current
current
Yeah.
code was established without chickens in mind.
Right.
So it was basically established, those distances are good because we don't have chickens. So I think that whatever we end up settling on relative to those setbacks is going to be specific to the chickens and may not comply and will probably be more restrictive than the code.
Well, and also keep in mind that the coops are rarely permanent structures, like people tend to move them around their property. So just, I think that would have to
That's
be.
not my
You will
experience.
have room to move it.
Well, that's, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
So if-
you have to kind of establish what that envelope is for
Right.
moving it around and make sure that that envelope is restricted by whatever setbacks are established based on, you know, maintaining distances from the neighbors that would not impact them relative to noise, odor, you know, the, whatever goes along with it.
Yeah, and if the setbacks are going to resolve those issues anyway, why blanket? If we have, so if one of our key considerations is setbacks and increasing setbacks from neighbors, then
It's-
that further limits the number of properties that may have the ability to have chickens.
So if you compare this to the town, where it's quite common. You know, a number of properties are over an acre. The number of parcels we have over 1 acre in the village is 7%. So in other words, 93% are less than an acre. Right, so it's quite dense. Setbacks, that's one component. My thought is this could potentially set us up for a lot of neighborly disputes. People move, even if you're okay with your neighbors now, hopefully you will continue to be, but maybe you won't be in a year. I just think with the density, in my opinion, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the village.
Why is it our responsibility as a board to pre-mitigate possible disputes among neighbors that may or may not occur?
That's not
There's
my
all kinds
position.
of
All
issues
those,
that-
all those complaints are gonna go to the building department, and I agree with what you're saying about lot sizing. I don't think it's a good fit. But my feeling is also that, our building department and our code enforcer, this is a lot to put on them. And we just adopted the short-term rental code, which they're still kind of finding their footing on that. And then to put this on top of it, that's another permitted thing. That's something else they have to go and check out. And that's another thing that the department is going to have to handle complaints about. I just don't think they're equipped.
Do we think that inconvenience to the village is justification for making something illegal?
Well, if they're doing more work, we're going to have to pay them more money.
But is that justification to make something that might otherwise be reasonable and illegal? Just because a neighbor doesn't like my dog, for example, like, that doesn't give them the right to decide whether or not I can have a dog.
But
Or
your
if
dog
they-
lives in your house most of the time.
Right, but what if my dog is within my fenced-in backyard? I mean, there are all kinds of nuisances and all kinds of things that neighbors have to work through together, right, in a community. And many communities navigate these issues. And why would the village of Warwick not have the capacity to navigate issues amongst its neighbors with regard to
Well,
chickens?
there's other things I think that need to be tightened up before we pass anything new. I know
Oh, for
there's
sure.
like a cat issue in our neighborhood and other neighborhoods. I think before we let the chickens in, we gotta straighten out the cats. 'Cause I don't know what I would do if I came home and there was a chicken on my porch.
We have to, I don't think, but that's, the cat issue is not connected to the chicken issue.
It's
Those
not,
are two
but I'm
different.
saying like there's other things we have to kind of focus on and clean up and tighten up before we start incorporating new policies.
So going back to the building department, last year there were 240 permit applications that came in. Anytime someone would want to build a coop, whether people like it or not, you do need to get a building permit, right? So there's some administrivia there, right? There's an on-site inspection. There were only 52 violations last year, but relatively speaking, those take up per incident, more time than anything else. Than permits, than looking at site plans, than any of that. And oftentimes, it requires our building inspector to meet with legal counsel, for which there's a cost to that. There's just, I like to think that everyone would do it,
The way you're supposed
The way
to
you're
do it,
supposed to.
according to the code. And that's
but
my
you can't write a law based on that.
Yeah, and that's my feeling too, is you kind of have to add in a certain gray area. I don't think we can, it's easy to put in writing no roosters. I don't think you can guarantee no roosters. New York State only sells chickens under a certain age by sixes. You really can't determine whether they're male or female at that age. We have letters from the Humane Society that's saying they don't accept roosters. You can't guarantee that no one's not going to have a rooster. And then the other fowl is a concern too, because growing up we had neighbors that had peacocks and they were extremely noisy and obnoxious. So that's sort of my feeling. And I understand how other municipalities have it set so if you have 1 acre, you can have chickens. I'm not comfortable having a law that says you can do this because you have a certain size of property, but you can't. And a lot of people that are advocating for it, I don't think are edgeable for it if we do it like that. And I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah, the way it's drafted right now is rather than requiring a certain size property, and I think this is all stuff that would have to be discussed, it's structured to require a certain amount of square feet per chicken. And it currently explicitly disallows peacocks. But back to the short-term rental, I want to draw the board's attention to the fact that when we were working through the short-term rental process, Steve articulated to us that we didn't actually have to allow short-term rentals. We could disallow them throughout the village.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation was recognizing that despite the impact, to the village and the cost of permitting these things and needing to go out and ensure the health, safety, and well-being of the people that were renting the property, we decided to proceed. And I think that the added burden of ensuring that things are done to code is not adequate justification in this particular case, especially given that it's comparable in terms of burden.
Well, I disagree with you because short-term rental brings people and people spend their money, and when people spend their money in the village, it's good for everyone.
Part of my argument articulated why I felt that this is something that is good for the community. So it's a little different thing, right? It's a resilience-related benefit as opposed to economic benefit, but both of which are necessary for kind of considerations for a community.
Barry, have some thoughts?
I think I expressed some of them previously, but I think that we have to look at the key thing being minimizing the impact on the neighbors.
Right.
And so that's going to come from distancing. We want to, make sure that noise is as minimal an issue as possible, and odors. Chicken manure is not the most pleasant of manures. Not that any manure is necessarily.
Your top 10 manures.
But,
Cow, pig.
and predators in the neighborhood. I
Right.
think that if it begins to attract predators, then you've got other issues for the neighbors who might have small pets, cats, small dogs, that could be a target. But I think that, I'm willing to, take a hard look at what we need to have and how we'd be able to meet those desires. But I think, kind of to Tom's point, there are not going to be a lot of properties that would qualify. I think once we really put pen to paper and come up with the setback requirements and other things.
What about if we created a small task force and had that small task force look at this local law, the one that you drafted, and flesh it out, tweak it, and then maybe we can invite Mary Ulrich down from Cornell to speak to the board as well. I mean, I think those are important things, those are important steps that we have to do in terms of due diligence before we just,
Say no.
open up the floodgates or whatever. I mean, I think the reasons why they were banned back in the 70s was you saw a greater suburbanization of our neighborhoods. And so, and it was a whole different mindset. And I understand that. And we have no farms in the village. And we're surrounded by farms. I wake up to a rooster every morning, so, because I live right on the town border.
One of the-
Kind of as a offshoot of that, I would suggest that we don't get too deep into the weeds of the way it's expressed, but look at the basic requirements and come to, if we can, come to agreement on that, or at least have discussions over that. So it's like, how many chickens are you allowed to have? What are the distances you're allowed to be? What's the envelope you need to have a movable chicken coop? What's the size of it based on the number of chickens you have? Those types of basic requirements, and then, we can kind of work on the nitty-gritty details and how it's worded.
And basic requirements defined based on the goals of the ordinance, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily begin restricting numbers of chickens without having like a goal that number of chickens was tied to.
You should have some level of justification and understanding as to,
Right.
yeah, I would think.
no
what-
arbitrary
what feeds-
numbers.
What feeds a family? What feeds a family of 5, say? How many chickens do you need to feed a family of 5? And, I mean, because that's the purpose, right? We're here not to create a commercial opportunity for someone, we're here to provide an opportunity for someone to raise chickens and be able to serve themselves. At least that's my feeling. I mean, you're welcome to disagree with me on that, but I would think that our goal definitely shouldn't be any kind of commercial or, and not that it's easy to control, but sharing of eggs among neighbors,
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that we choose to disallow, we need to have a very clear, reason for it. There has to be a rational reason. So if we're not okay with people having 10 chickens, there has to be some tie to it, right? After this certain number, Cornell Cooperative Extension or such and such a study has said that the stench is overwhelming within 150 feet.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
We can't just say, we're not okay with you selling your eggs, so we're gonna limit it so that you can only have the N number of eggs that are gonna feed your family, because there's not I feel like there's not a rational nexus there.
Right. I thought it said in
It did say.
the
no
ordinance that
selling-
no selling of
No
eggs.
selling of eggs.
It's no selling of, not commercialization.
Right.
Right, which I think, I don't know, is a little bit different from. One other thing I did want to draw your attention to is in the zoning code, which I think is interesting. It says that one of the allowable uses for residential is agriculture. And so I just think that's interesting, and I'm wondering about that. I don't know that
But what-
that is material to this
Yeah.
conversation.
What does that mean?
What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
The other thing I wanted to, excuse me, bring up that I think you mentioned is the reason why the bunnies and the chickens are locked into the same code. It has to do with the bunny hutch that is usually outside the home. I think that's why they're together, because it's a chicken coop and a bunny hutch.
yeah. And some people have bunnies inside their houses, though, which is, and this says no bunnies.
No bunnies
period.
outside, I think, in a hutch.
It says no, it it says no keeping of them as pets.
Isn't there the word hutch in there? I feel like I saw the word hutch, bunny hutch, because I never knew what that was called.
I can't think of the last time we sent the code enforcement officer out to enter a house and say, where are
Take a
your
bunny?
bunnies?
It says-
Actually, in my tenure, I have had that.
Oh, boy.
It says honor
To go
after,
in a house?
No, it wasn't in, it was a
No,
hutch
It was a
outside
hutch
the house.
outside. I'm
And they
saying,
were
I don't
growing them
To sell?
to
Breeding.
sell, breeding them, yeah.
it says honor after the effective date of this article, no person shall raise, keep, harbor, or maintain any of these animals, herein referred to as fowl or birds or rabbits, either as pets or as a source of food supply within the limits of the village of Warwick. Household birds such as canaries, parakeets, parrots, or similar household birds shall not be affected by this article. What?
I said,
Oh, yes, you So I didn't include rabbits in
yeah,
my...
it's about time they're separated, right? Okay.
So how should we proceed?
I don't think we should. On this particular subject. It's my opinion.
I will probably bring it up multiple times. throughout our tenure.
I think that I have my concerns, but I think it should be investigated carefully. And I think that we have the resources to be able to do that. And so I'm not, at this point, not willing to shut down the conversation. I'd like to keep the dialogue moving forward. For all the reasons that Carly brings up, but then on the other side are all the reasons why, many people are opposed to it, and their concerns make sense, they're rather clear. As far as predators go, we have probably more predators at this time in the village than ever before. And that is a concern. We have coyotes all around.
Fox. I keep seeing a
We have-
fox in my
We
backyard.
have fox, we have falcons that
Hawks.
hawks, yeah. So there's a lot going on here. It's a wild kingdom. But I would like to know also in terms of what are the limitations in terms of square footage of a parcel and how that works out with setbacks, with a run, with a coop, and fencing. I think all of that has to be clearly stated in any legislation.
I like your idea of the working group because I think that it is true, right? Like the predator issue, the noise issue, the smell issue, like those are all things that need to be demonstrably able to be remediated through the ordinance, and that we have case studies that demonstrate that, right? Like, I've done my research, but there are other voices, and being able to articulate, each of the whys and each of the why nots, and then that this is how, and this is how it's been done, and being able to bring that forward, I think, is important, and being able to engage around that.
Right.
So,
I think it's important to talk to the planning department secretary and the code enforcers and see how that would impact their day-to-day lives.
yeah. I mean, I think you have to do some research on what would be required of them, as well, based on any of that has to be part of the conversation.
So I have a question for Ben. Do you often see municipalities with laws based on parcel size? Or is that discriminating because not everyone's gonna have the same parcel size? Is it more around setbacks than parcel size?
No, lot area is common,
That is common?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious what data Cornell has as it relates to lot sizes. Because again, with 93% of all parcels in the village less than an acre, it cuts out presumably the majority of parcels.
But you don't need an acre to have chickens.
Okay, so 83% on less than half an acre.
That's assuming that that is the boundary point, but that's not been established.
So I was just, every neighborhood in the village is very different. I was just at a party in someone's backyard in one of our neighborhoods, and the backyards were very, very close. Like from this person's backyard, I could see the street that runs parallel. Everyone's backyards are butt up against each other. I could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 backyards just. So I think it's worth considering how different these neighborhoods are and how they're laid out, and especially in the areas that are more condensed.
I think we should move ahead with the working group. And I think 2 trustees and maybe somebody from the public or 2 people from the public would be effective. And I think that bringing Cornell Cooperative down to talk to the board and kind of help us and respond to some of the questions that we have. So,
Why would they do that?
why would they do that?
They've offered.
They've offered to do it.
That's
offered?
their,
Oh, yeah.
that's their
And they came
mission.
the last time we were considering it and
Yeah,
made a
That's their
presentation.
whole-
We had,
that's their whole
good
bet.
discussion.
I just like,
Why would, yeah, why would they
I
want
wouldn't drive a couple hours to present to
to get
someone.
yelled at by
No, they're
half
not,
the
they're not
people?
coming from Cornell, they're coming from Middletown.
they have
little better.
like,
It's-
they have outposts of.
Well, and I think they could come, like, we don't have to wait, right, for the committee to figure out stuff. They could come
I think
at
this-
any time,
Make
At
any
any
time
time.
that works for them,
Right.
and talk to the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've often do things at farmers markets, so if it comes to that and people have questions, they could open it up and table at farmers markets about different things. They were tabling about the lantern flies
Well,
and,
that's the master gardeners,
oh,
so they don't get involved in poultry
sorry.
normally.
Okay, so I think we've talked it out, and we'll move forward with a small task force, and I'll reach out to Cornell and to talk to Mary Ulrich tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
yeah. Thank you. So open it up now to public comment, and the guidelines for public comment is this particular comment section is on items that are on the agenda. So,
Meaning motions.
motions, yes.
So can
And
you,
Well,
Discussion.
and discussions,
And
yeah,
discussion.
anything.
Okay.
Anything
yeah.
on the agenda.
agenda.
so you
Yeah.
can use this moment to talk about chickens. That's what you're saying.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so I'll open it up to the public. Please raise your hand, tell us your name, and speak to the board, please.
Brian, hi. I'm
Hi, Brian.
Torpy. So I'm not the chicken guy, just wanted to make sure. It's very interesting to see the sausages being made, I think everyone, even Tom, Carly. So it seems one of the objections, a lot of them come from potentially, maybe, just not having the experience of, I guess, being around chickens in a smaller setting, not like a commercial setting, which I could imagine is very stunning. So when I went out to hand out some of the signs, obviously I'm speaking to people that are in favor, many of whom have come up from the city and just automatically assumed that, you know, we were going to be able to, that they were gonna be able to have, you know, chickens, because a lot of, you know, in Queens and Brooklyn, a lot of them able to have chickens. So from the people that support it, that was a lot of the feedback I got. They were just very confused, they didn't know why. And they would just like to have chickens, you know, maybe not a lot. Many of them were parents that had kids. Many of them said that, like, I want to be able to show my kids, you know, where the food comes from and all that. And I think that is very important. I mean, for me, that's one of the driving reasons. It's not the prices of eggs. It's going to be an investment. You know, I don't think you're gonna be able to see that money come back to you for you know, X amount of years to come. And the people that opposed, the three things that I got from them was they're noisy, they're stinky, and they're gonna kill you with bird flu, potentially. And the bird flu one, that one did scare me. The noisy, of course, if you have a rooster and how do you deal with, potentially if they have a rooster, that all makes sense. They're not noisy at all. I mean, my neighbor's dog, Elizabeth, her dog, when she does come outside, it's, you know, pretty noisy, but, you know, it's fine, they're dogs. You know. So they're not that noisy. I'm sure if you had 1,000 clucking, that's, you know, it sounds noisy, but I think for what's gonna be reasonable for a village, they're not that noisy. And the smell, again, if you have many of them, definitely smelly. They're not that smelly. And if you properly, you know, use the manure, the droppings, whatever, in the garden, wherever else, especially for your lawn, it turns out to be, you know, quite healthy for the lawn and whatever else you're growing. And then the bird flu, again, that concerns me. No one wants to get the flu, because now we're talking about life or death. That's, I'm sure anyone who's just kind of opposed, not in the middle, once they hear that, they're just like, I'm out of this, I don't want anything to do with this. There's never been a case, and just triple check from the CDC, that showed that someone got the bird flu from a chicken, not in commercial settings. And so no one's getting the bird flu. And then, I know it sounds corny, but I really do think this is an opportunity for the community to grow closer together. And whatever the community, when more people are getting to know each other, spend time with each other, it's just good to build ties within the community, period. Because you need to, you know, help each other out. And if you're familiar with my corner, where I live, typically on election season, there's different signs, but this time that happens, we have the same, you know, signs on our yard. And I think that's great for us to get around that. And what's the last point? Oh, yeah. So I ultimately think it does come down to just sometimes this neighbors just they don't trust their neighbors, you know. And I think that is a bigger issue, and I don't think there's any laws you could create to prevent neighbors from potentially not getting along. I mean, I get along great with my neighbors, even though if, again, on election season, you might not think that. I love my neighbors, we all get along. And I really do think, because when you become older and you have kids, it's hard to, you know, find hobbies and different things to stay connected, but unless it's with your kids or work, and this is one of the things I think, I mean, I met other people here, now I know them and we're stronger in the community because of this. So if you're raising them, you're gonna have questions. I know, I mean, I spoke with Tony, other people that get the organic feed will be able to get feed and share it with each other. So I really do think, and I'm sure there could be cases, but I just really think this is more potentially of an opportunity for the community to grow stronger roots if, again, all of the, you know, the making of the sausage and all the concerns get addressed. But I
Great.
ultimately think it's a good opportunity for people to get close.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes,
How
sir.
you doing, Tony Cornelius? I mean, it's been a couple months since the last time I was here and we spoke about this. So I've been able to talk to a lot of people in that time, some opposing, some for, mostly for, which is really great. A lot of the opposition that I hear is what you just kind of spoke on, is it essentially comes down to I don't trust my neighbor. I don't trust my neighbor to be good stewards of chickens. You know, even Mary, you're afraid of a chicken coming onto your porch or whatever. That's because you're worried that if a neighbor has a chicken,
Right.
they're not gonna keep them enclosed and it's gonna come out. You just don't trust your neighbor enough to, you know, a lot of that, what it comes down to, unfortunately, that's I mean, that's a larger issue, that's not just a Michigan issue, you know what I mean? It's hard to control that. In terms of bringing the community together, I mean, I've already seen it. We've formed a group of people that are willing to have chickens and enjoy chickens and are willing to fight for chickens. I see it in my neighborhood as well. I mean, I started a new garden in my house, and I have my neighbors coming up to me asking about my garden, you know. It's gonna be the same way with chickens, you know, and now I have, you know, four new neighbors starting gardens and raised beds in their backyards because they saw what I was doing in my house. And, oh, it is possible, you know what I mean? And some of the concerns with predators and whatnot, I mean, there's a ton of predators around here. I mean, they're running around at night no matter what we do. They're just here. That's why you gotta keep your chickens enclosed. If you don't keep your chickens enclosed and they're just running around, they're gonna get eaten, and that, you know, you don't want your chickens to get eaten. So you're gonna have them enclosed, you know. That's very important. Lot size issue, that's definitely a concern, but you don't need an acre to have, you know, 4 chickens, 5 chickens on your property. You know, you can have a nice coop enclosed on a quarter acre just fine. And nobody would even really know they're there. There's a lot of breeds that are more docile that barely even, the only time you're gonna hear them during the day is when they lay an egg. And that's them telling you, hey, I laid an egg, come and get it. You know what I mean? That's the only time you really hear them squawk, unless, you know, a predator comes in and scares them or whatnot. But, I mean, I hear a lot of these issues and I understand. It just, you know, not trusting your neighbor doesn't seem like a good reason for me not to have chickens in my yard that are like, when it comes to the smell issue, you know, there's different methods that you can have in your coop, like the deep litter method, for example. Like, you put a deep layer of straw or bedding or whatever it may be, and the chickens manure onto that. You collect that every 3 or 4 months and turn it into a compost pile. So, I mean, it's composting as it's going. So the high nitrogen smell of the chicken manure, because it's high in nitrogen, it goes into the straw and it starts composting, and the compost itself doesn't smell, it mitigates the smell. So there's certain things that you can do. My idea of what I want to do on my own property is a chicken tractor. A chicken tractor is a small coop that's movable around your property, so it gets they get fresh grass to eat every day. They get fresh, you know, bugs to eat every day, and you're moving it around. So they're manuring on that one spot for 1 or 2 days, and then you move it around, and they're manuring on that one spot for 1 or 2 days. That mitigates the smell as well, because there's not a lot of manure concentrated in one area. Plus, it's gonna control the tick population because I'm moving them around. You know, there's ticks all over the place. I mean, there's several reasons to do it, and I hear the opposition. I mean, I'd be really curious to hear what the opposition emails say, because I've probably already heard it from the people that are emailing us with questions about what, you know, FAQs on chickens and whatnot. So, I mean, I hear the concerns.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's a lack of trust. I think the concern might be that not everyone's going to follow the rules. And so that's part of, you know, that's why we put regulations and rules. We have to, because
Exactly.
not everybody follows the rules.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, and as far as the cats, I do trust my neighbors, but it seems like there's just more and more cats. And, you know, whether people dropping them off or whether they're coming, it's not that I don't trust my neighbors that are letting their cats out.
So should we outlaw cats?
It's a different
Yeah,
issue.
we actually have pretty strong
we have
cat
a cat card.
regulations.
We have some overreach on cats where you have to register your cat.
We do. Yeah.
Well, the same with a dog.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
license a dog.
We do have a very strict cat code.
Yeah, but I hear all the concerns, I understand, but there's ways to go around these concerns, and so the smell is like less of a concern, the predators are less of a concern, you know. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
I mean, I don't
you.
know what else to say.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Spurlock. I spoke earlier this month in pro of chicken. I'm still in pro of chicken. I am a teacher locally. I teach at an elementary school in New Jersey. I think that the chickens would be very educational. I have a lot of young nieces and nephews here in the town, and I think that it would be wonderful for them to come over to our house and experience having the chickens and watching them grow through the life cycle. I think that's extremely rewarding. Our land, we are the lucky ones. We are just about an acre, and I just hope, I am very interested to see what the Cornell study will say about chickens. I think that that would be very informative. I think Carly outlined it well. I think if you guys do say no, I want to know why, and I think that Cornell will give you guys some good information on that. But I also just want to say, I know that there are currently ordinances for bees, for example, that they have to be within 50 feet. So it does have the property line in each direction. So that does already kind of, you know, people without that 50 feet of property line are taken out from keeping bees. So maybe for chickens, depending on what you find, I hope that you guys just keep an open mind, and if you find that having an acre is enough to have a chicken, that you would still be able to pass it through for that, I believe you said 7%, Mr. McKnight?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just giving that allowance in, because we are a town that is, has a rich agricultural history. And I definitely want to just continue that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? This will be a continuing conversation, I can tell you that, so, yeah. So, we're gonna move forward with motions.
Number one, motion to amend the resolution adopted April 7th, 2025 to fund the well number 3 project with the estimated cost of said project of $1,295,800.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2, resolution to fund well number 3 project amended. Whereas the village board of the Village of Warwick has undertaken and approved the project for the establishment of well number 3, and whereas the estimated cost of the said project is $1,446,700, and whereas the village board of the Village of Warwick proposes to pay for said project with ARPA funds to the extent of $486,948, and with federal funds from an EPA Clean Drinking Water grant to the extent of $959,752. Now therefore it is hereby resolved as follows. 1, that the village board approves the aforesaid expenditure of funds from the said sources for establishment of well number 3, and 2, that the village mayor is authorized to sign all documents necessary to carry out the terms hereof.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Cheney?
Yes.
Trustee Foster?
Yes.
Trustee McKnight?
Yes.
Trustee Calora?
Yes.
Mayor Newhart?
Yes.
Motion to approve payment number 8 in the amount of $69,248.29 to TAM Enterprises, Inc. for the well number 3 treatment plant project as per the recommendation of Pitt & Garrow and Dosh Consulting Engineers, PC. Funds are appropriated in budget code H.8330.2000.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4, motion to approve payment number 1 in the amount of $14,820 to Joseph Warren Electrical for the well number 3 treatment plant project as per the recommendation of Pitt & Garrow and Dosh Consulting Engineers, PC. Funds are appropriated in budget code H.8330.2000.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5, motion to grant permission to Village of Warwick employee Jason McCutch to carry over 4.5 vacation days.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion to grant permission to close off 2 parking spots on Church Street along Lewis Park on Saturday, June 21st, 2025 from 3 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. to accommodate the catering team for the Town of Warwick Historical Society's annual Party in the Park event. Certificate of insurance has been received.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to grant permission to Warwick Assembly to use the pavilion, gazebo, and grass area in between in Stanley Deming Park on Saturday, August 2nd, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. for a back-to-school bash event. Permission includes the use of electricity, speakers for music, restrooms, and one ice cream truck parked on the handball court. Completed park permit and security deposit have been received. Approval pending proof of insurance from the ice cream truck vendor in Warwick Assembly.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to grant permission to Boy Scout Troop 45 to use the Veterans Memorial Park Pavilion for a Court of Awards ceremony and end-of-year barbecue on Monday, June 23rd, 2025, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Request includes use of 4 village-owned tables and 40 chairs, restrooms, electricity, and pavilion lights. Completed park permit and proof of insurance have been received.
Second.
Discussion on that, please?
Sure.
So, who's setting up the table and chairs? They're village owned?
They're just left for the scouts. We don't really set them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, does DPW bring them down there?
They just drop on it.
They're in a
They're actually
shed.
in a shed right next to the pavilion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not,
Okay, I was just checking, I
Yeah.
didn't know if any group, no matter who it is, was asking our resources to set it up. So
Yeah.
they're just left there, and they're just using them.
that's great.
Putting it back.
They have a key to the shed and they,
Yeah. And for future reference, I forget what the exact number is, 18 or 19, that's how many tables we have. So if you see anyone else requesting more tables than what we have, just put it in your mind. That
How do
number.
you know that?
she counted them.
Did you go in and when did you count them?
There are
I'm
some
not
secrets
giving away
Lori
my
keeps to
secrets.
herself.
Not giving away.
Oh my, okay.
So,
That's what I do in the middle of the night.
I did see on the facility use permit, I think there's a section where it asks if they want to use tables and chairs. I assume that's just for Memorial Park and not Stanley Deming, because I don't think we have the same
Well,
over at
it's
Stanley.
any-
do we?
It's any.
It could be any event,
You
but
can use
we,
them anywhere.
yeah. But it's rare, it's mostly Memorial Park because of the pavilion.
Yeah.
That's,
I'm just trying to be conscious of not using village resources to set up for anyone who wants to use it. I mean, look, we have those tables and chairs. Every time they're used, they get, I mean, they're assets, they're small value assets, but they're assets of the village.
right.
I don't know if we should have that on the facility use permit.
I think these, like the scouts, what are they gonna rent chairs and rent tables?
No, my point is, if anyone wants to use them, say it's not the scouts, it's literally anyone who wants to put in a facility use permit.
Right.
Do you think we should have a rental fee to like recoup maintenance or replacement of them?
That's
I don't think
an
we
idea.
Can we?
It's an idea.
We do
It could be
Sure.
Charge?
a fee. Yeah, like we don't charge for facility use, but we could charge to rent equipment if it's a concern.
My concern was more around making sure it's not DPW being event party rental
No.
players.
No.
So we're good on that.
We are.
But
And if they
it
have
may be
to-
worth discussing
A
some kind
rental
of
fee.
fee to rent
Yeah.
village equipment. I mean, what if people,
Steal them?
I don't know, steal them? What if they
Yeah.
jumping on the tables and,
Break them?
And you're
Well, that's why they have
differentiating.
insurance.
And Tom, to be clear, you're differentiating between like a public event, for example, that's being put on by a local organization that anybody can attend versus like a private party.
no, I'm more distinguishing between if it's a village sponsored or partnered program, okay, that makes sense to use those. If it's a family reunion, if it's a nonprofit, if it's whatever, anyone can go put in get a facility use permit. And if these are available to anyone, we're not watching them, you know, how they're taking care of the equipment. But it would be a shame if we find some in the room and then we have to go spend taxpayer dollars to replace them.
Yeah, if somebody damaged them.
Well, but we do have a fee that we hold,
Right.
and if we were to find that, it would be reduced from that fee.
They're just like basic tables and chairs. They're nothing like crazy fancy.
I would hope not, Mary.
They're just
Not like the chalice.
It's nothing.
Oh, man. Okay.
All right, so we got a second.
Yeah, we have a second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your insight.
I don't know if you mean that.
Those
No,
poor,
I really do.
Okay.
I'm not being sarcastic at all.
poor scouts are gonna have to work their merit badge to
Motion to
build
author-
chairs.
Motion to authorize a refund to Jennifer Valent in the amount of $10 for garage sale permit number 1851-25 due to administrative error. At the time of application, the $25 security deposit was incorrectly deposited, while the $15 permit fee was mistakenly held as the security deposit.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the budget modification request to transfer available appropriations for certain FY 2024-2025 budget account lines per the village treasurer's memo dated June 11th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the budget modification request to modify the budget appropriations and revenue for the streetlight capital project per the village treasurer's memo received on June 11th, 2025.
Second.
Yeah,
Discussion,
could you-
I missed that one. Is it in the packet?
It is in the package.
I
but
missed it.
I
Could,
think it's an email too.
Barry, could you clarify that?
Probably not.
Oh, okay. It was just a lot of numbers, and I was trying to follow the thread.
What am I looking at?
I think it was,
Yeah, but
initially, the budget didn't have a budget line that was enough, I mean,
To cover.
because we weren't sure what was happening and when it was happening, so.
Okay.
I think that
Okay.
it's,
that was timing related?
there was an inter-fund transfer,
Can you remind me of the page that we're on?
40.
Oh, I see that.
We didn't have the initial appropriations, so it had to be.
It's a pretty
I'm not sure
sizable
where it was
transfer.
transferred from.
And it's coming out of which budget? I imagine last year's budget.
A2801.
82801,
Yeah, what
yeah,
is
it's an
that one?
inter-fund
I have to
transfer.
look at the last year's budget to see.
I don't know whether that's contingency or.
See if I can find it.
Are you looking at the budget?
I'm trying to, but I'm not smart enough to link properly. I was like,
My general sense, it was about timing, that we hadn't allotted, and so she had to make that interfund transfer, so it's very simple. The work is done.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, I remember it all being budgeted for. I just,
I can't
Just
find
trying to
out which
understand the
is
transfer.
A2801. It's not in, A2801 is not in the approved budget.
But I think it might be in
Under
last
revenue?
year's. Are you looking at this year's, the new budget?
Yeah.
I think it's in
Last year's?
last year's, yeah.
Okay.
Because now it's a transitional time, so,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
That makes sense.
okay.
all right.
Okay.
So thank you.
So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion to accept the proposal from Edmunds GovTech for cloud hosting services and to authorize the mayor to sign the same. The $3,500 annual fee will be prorated from the date of setup to December 31, 2025, followed by a total annual fee of $3,500 for the period of January 1, 2026 to December 31, 2026. Funds are appropriated in the budget codes A1325.4570, F8310.4570, and G8110.4570.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Motion to accept the proposal from New York State Solar Farm with a gross photovoltaic cost of $302,316 for the design and installation of a roof-mounted photovoltaic system at the DPW garage as per the recommendation of village engineering and surveying properties. Funds are appropriated in budget code A-1640-4950.
Second.
Discussion.
Sure.
On the table, there's a line called estimated federal tax credit.
Yes.
And that seems to work into the calculations that would allow us to determine what the village's responsibility is. What happens if those tax credits aren't realized? Who's on the hook for that?
We would be on the hook for it. And so instead of a cost neutral event, which would be out of pocket $1,000, we would be out of pocket $90,000, which would take a 2-year payoff, given the savings we would have across all electricity.
And so we don't really have any control over that at this point?
We don't. We spoke with the vendor who, and I'm happy to talk about how we arrived at that decision if you'd like. Spoke with the vendor, and this is what they do in their experience. Let's say the federal administration tomorrow were to say they're taking those away. My understanding is because this is something that's been out there, it would actually take a period of 1 to 2 years to actually take that away. I could be wrong, but that's what I understood from the vendor.
So this is based on the tax code as it exists today?
That's correct.
Or whatever, 3 weeks ago, whenever we did it.
That's correct.
So it would then take a change in the tax code, so it's, and I guess what then forces them to follow through and actually do what's necessary to obtain that as opposed to the code changing? I mean, is it restricted to just the code changing and that would then change our costs, or does it, or could it include their failure to properly apply?
Whose failure?
The failure of the company that we select.
Oh, this is something that it'd be a direct pay. It's something that we would apply for after it's
Oh,
up
we
and running.
apply.
We
Okay.
apply for
So
it. It's not them.
So the only issue would be if the tax code changes.
That's correct. And that's the number one concern that I
Yeah.
pointed out
I know, from the very beginning.
from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We had four options. And by the way, thank you, Raina, for shepherding this process 3 times.
Welcome.
Really appreciate it. Our engineering partners were great as well. So the one that, if you look at the very last page of the agenda packet, it is it shows a matrix of the four vendors. We had some minimum requirements that they had to meet. There were more vendors who bid but did not meet the requirements. So a couple things that go into it. First of all, the quality of the product and the warranty that we were getting from New York State Solar Farm was far and above the other ones. If you look at the levelized cost of energy, it's actually quite good compared to some of the other ones that we were looking at as well. We were also looking at Hudson River Solar pretty closely. And if you look at the estimated annual production, it's actually near the top there as well. So they kind of like, they hit all the different categories, but with their ability to, first of all, they had the most comprehensive proposal as well, and they had references where we couldn't get references from everyone else. So we did check those. Jane was great in her assistance on that. So if we get the NYSERDA New York Sun rebate, $25,000, I'm not concerned about that. We already have a contract with NYSERDA for the 147. We already have the $37,500 grant coming in. So the only concern would be the federal tax credit of $90,000. But assuming we apply for that, as soon as we turn the system on and can prove that it's going, we can apply for it right away. Assuming that happens, right, and we're not off course on any change orders or anything, the village's responsibility is $1,000. So it's pretty cost neutral for the ability to save roughly $45,000 a year in electricity costs.
But then your selected vendor also includes annual preventative maintenance for the
That's right.
first few years, but nobody else does.
That's right. That's another one of the aspects. Yeah.
So,
Oh, and they did conduct a site visit, so they actually saw the goods versus some of the ones who did not.
so basically, we have to upfront $302,316.
That's right. We already have 187.5.
And that's the contract we're gonna sign with NYS Solar Farm, right?
That's right.
For that amount, and then they're going to install the system fully. And then we're gonna go after the various grants and the tax credit.
Well, so we already have the 37,500 in the bank, right?
Right.
The 147.5, as soon as we sign the contract with the vendor, we'll get 25% of that. The 75% remainder will come at completion of the project from NYSERDA. So that does mean we have to outlay that, but I did work with Sadie all the way through the budgeting process where we do have that set aside. But I would like to see us act with some sense of urgency once we engage the vendor to actually get it installed and done. I don't want it to drag on forever, because the sooner we can apply for that credit, I'd feel more comfortable with that.
It's a pretty straightforward project, so.
What time requirements exist in the contract?
With NYSERDA,
No, with the vendor. Because
we
they're
have-
the ones that are going to dictate, how, as work gets done and they charge us for the work, then we should be able to go to NYSERDA and get the money.
we haven't gone to contract yet. That will be the next step.
And the RFP didn't have any stipulated requirements for performance, and the vendor didn't provide any, time-wise?
No, so we did reference our contract with NYSERDA, which is in place, where we have to have it done
Yeah, what's that deadline?
within I think it's within, honestly, like 18 months or something.
Oh, okay, it's not.
Will our
too bad.
contract include their required timeline?
I think we
Oh,
should,
yeah.
I think we should negotiate that
Yeah.
as part of the contract.
So if the board were to agree and approve this tonight, the next step, Ben, was we would want to get a contract with them, but we'd also have to give you the contract we have with NYSERDA for the grant, so you can
Right. Yeah.
Make sure it's all
So we'd be
aligned.
subject to approval of a contract approved by the board.
That's right. And NYSERDA has to also see our contract
Okay.
with the vendor.
Makes sense.
And we have contacts there and everything, but.
Okay.
Any questions on it?
No,
No.
thank you very much for all you did to
Yeah, great
bring it
work.
across the finish
Yeah.
line with
Absolutely.
Raina's
It's
help.
a lot of
and
work, yeah,
properties,
thank
but-
you.
You mean across the
Thanks for
starting line?
spearheading.
Yeah, you got us to the starting line.
Yeah,
To the starting line.
yeah. And it was a tremendous amount of work. Just as the history, it did go out for bid, and it came back squirrely,
It
right?
came back where nobody met our requirements.
That's right.
They just assumed things.
They decided they were gonna give the proposal the way they always give proposals,
Right.
Yeah, nice job.
individually.
Yeah, so great work.
But it was a little nerve-wracking where we had, on the day of the bid opening, we had 0 proposals in the morning.
Yes, we did.
And then Raina shows up with 7. I don't know.
Okay. So, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye, aye.
Wait a minute, you're just starting more work for yourself. You're not getting rid of anything.
Of course, we're not gonna let them use chairs or tables.
If they want to borrow a chair, no way. He's never let me forget that now.
Sorry. Okay, onward to reports.
I'll start?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just, a lot going on in the village relative to construction activity, which I'm sure most people have seen or been inconvenienced by. Just a reminder that the town is replacing the culvert under Ball Road, and there's a detour for that, that's going to remain in effect for, probably now another 3 to 5 weeks, maybe hopefully sooner. As to the DOT paving project, the paving project includes 14 miles of roadway enhanced to include resurfacing, pedestrian enhancements, drainage work, and a new roundabout. Project work within the next 1 to 2 months. In the coming week, the contractors will be working on utilities at the following locations. There are 3 different locations in the Village of Florida, mostly on 17, I guess mostly on 94. And in the Village of Warwick, they're going to be working on the intersection of 17A Main Street and West Street. And that's going to include daily lane closures. It should only take about a week's time. And then additional work is out in the town. Route 94 at Clifford Court, they're making site distance improvements. There's going to be daily lane closures, that's 2 to 3 weeks. Route 94 at Wawayanda Road, drainage improvements as well. Daily lane closures, 2 to 3 weeks. Route 94 between Warwick Turnpike and Sanfordville Road, Pennings Lane. This is the big one. It's a culvert replacement. It's going to have one-way traffic utilizing a temporary signal, and they're estimating that to be 2 months. Route 94 between the New Jersey Line and Warwick Turnpike, they're going to repair shoulder, and you can expect daily lane closures for 2 to 3 weeks. And the other thing I would just say is that please be very careful in your driving when you're in these work zones. Take into account that the men that are working there need you to be cognizant of their presence so that there aren't any horrible incidents.
Absolutely, thank you. I thought the work on West Street was going to be at night.
That's not what the release said that
Okay.
I saw.
Okay.
So. That might be down the road. This is some utility. I don't know whether this is the drainage work.
Yeah, this was for the drainage.
For the drainage work. That might be down the road.
Down the road.
This may be relocating poles and
Oh, yeah,
things
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
so.
Okay.
And other utilities. I mean, there might be gas lines they have to move in order to do the work they need to do to replace those catch basins.
So, it's going to be an interesting 3 years.
2.5?
Yeah, pray. Carly?
I'll be brief. We received some proposals for the Transportation Safety Action Plan and are putting together some evaluation materials on that. And so then we'll have to get together on sort of the evaluation committee and next steps.
Yeah, that's good.
But that's exciting. We'll
It
be
is.
finally moving along with that project,
Yeah.
which will include the Slow Down Warwick campaign and the
Eliza's on
townwide.
board.
And Eliza's finally on board, so next chapter.
Good things take
Nice.
time.
It's exciting.
Okay. Mary?
Yes, everyone should have received their Summer Village newsletter in the mail. I just have one correction on the Village of Work summer concert schedule. The Sunday, July 13th High Street concert, the time is at 5 p.m., not 7 p.m. Also, did I talk about this last meeting? I can't remember. This is something we did. It's the architectural walking tour. You can get that here at Village Hall or next door at the Tourism Center. And then there's one thing I want to announce from the Warwick Historical Society is creating a community cookbook. Submissions will be open until July 31st, 2025. You can submit your own personal favorite recipe or a family recipe, and the cookbook will be out just in time for the holidays. And you can do that on the Warwick Historical website, which is warwickhistory.org.
Tom?
No report.
No
No,
report.
You don't want my recipes, Mary.
Well, I just want to mention a few things coming up. We have Juneteenth, which is this Thursday, and there's going to be quite a celebration on Railroad Green, organized by the UAME Church. And after that, after the day-long event will be a concert, a part of our concert series. So I'm excited about that. I think it should be a lot of fun. And they put a lot of energy into creating this celebration, so I think it's going to be great.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Also, coming up is the Monarch Village, which we are, the first Monarch Village in New York State, Pollinator Festival, and that will be at Park Avenue School this coming Saturday from 11 to 3, I believe. And public's invited, and what it is kind of a bringing together of all of our different schools and classes who have been working on these projects about pollination, about whether it's monarchs or bats, and it's very involved. And the teachers have been working on this for months, and I think people will be amazed at just what these kids are coming up with. I've seen a glimpse of it, and it's remarkable. So if you have some time on Saturday, stop by Park Ave. I think you'll be entertained. And
Do you want me to announce
oh yeah,
that?
please
Yeah.
announce that, the strawberry
great.
picnic.
Also Saturday, this Saturday, June 21st, from 1 to 3 p.m. in Stanley Deming Park will be the Strawberry Picnic. Nicole Hickson, Warwick Artist in Residence, and Wickham Works invite you to celebrate summer at the Divine Feminine Feeding Nature with a strawberry social potluck. Strawberry activities and treats to share.
Great. And the sculpture that she did is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It changes every time I see it. It really is amazing.
The strawberries are thriving. They're doing way better than my strawberries.
Yeah, they are. They're just kind of cascading off of the sculpture, off of the incredible
Her hair.
divine feminine.
You said 1 to 3?
Yes.
So people could go to Park Avenue, they could do the morning.
Yeah,
they
sort of,
could
and there's
go
a
to Stanley
pollinator
Deming.
garden that's right next to her that has been kind of revived, so that's great. And there's also a Girl Scout project, a silver project of a pollinator garden next to the playground, right along, parallel to South Street. So if you want to take a look at some very lovely gardens, that's another piece. I also want to congratulate the firemen for their big celebration this past weekend. It was a very large parade, and as I said, the police did a remarkable job making sure everybody was safe. But it really showed, I think, the region, the incredible men and women we have who are volunteers and who do this incredible work in terms of keeping us safe. But this is a time when they can kind of show their stuff. And I've never seen such big trophies in my life. But, and actually, my store won one of those enormous
I was
trophies.
gonna say congratulations.
Yeah. So if you want to
to.
see, it's in the window. It was for a window display. They had a contest. But I want to congratulate Chief Lehman, who is the fire chief now, and this will be his last year. So, but it was just a great coordination, and the weather held, and it's always great to have a parade in this beautiful village. So. And that's all I have tonight, and we don't have an executive session, so could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're still on.